Marcus Chen stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse, watching the city pulse below like a living organism. At 38, he commanded a construction empire worth $3 billion. His company, Chen Development, had reshaped skylines across America. Yet tonight, on the eve of his company's 20th anniversary, he felt hollow. The whiskey in his hand caught the city lights, amber and gold. 20 years. 2 decades since he'd walked away from everything that mattered to chase a dream that had consumed him whole. 20 years since he'd last seen her face. His phone buzzed. Daniel, his project manager. "Boss, we've got a situation at the Brooklyn Heights site. The lead mason quit. We're 3 weeks behind schedule and the investors are breathing down my neck." Marcus pinched the bridge of his nose. The Brooklyn Heights project was his pride, a mixed-income development that would house both luxury condos and affordable apartments. It was personal. It was the kind of building he'd dreamed about when he was nobody. "I'll handle it myself," Marcus said. "Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. I want every mason in the city who's available for an interview." If you're drawn to stories of second chances and hidden identities, hit that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss what happens when past and present collide in the most unexpected way. Daniel's voice carried surprise. "You're going to personally interview masons?" "I built this company with my own hands, Daniel. I haven't forgotten where I came from." That was partially true. Marcus had started Chen Development with nothing but a used truck and a set of masonry tools. But he'd forgotten other things, more important things. The next morning arrived cold and sharp, October wind cutting through the construction site like a knife. Marcus stood in the trailer that served as a temporary office, reviewing applications. 12 masons had shown up, 11 men, 1 woman. He almost dismissed the woman's application immediately. Masonry was brutal work, physically demanding. Then he saw her credentials. Licensed mason, 15 years experience, specialization in historic restoration and modern high-rise construction. Recommendations from contractors across 3 states. "Send in the first candidate," Marcus told his assistant. The morning dragged through interviews, good workers, decent skills, but nobody exceptional. Nobody with the fire he needed to salvage this project. "Last one," his assistant said. "Name's Olivia Rivera." The door opened. Marcus looked up from the application and his world stopped. Time folded in on itself. 20 years collapsing into a single moment. The woman who walked through that door was older, leaner, with calloused hands and crow's feet around her eyes. Her hair, once long and wild, was pulled back in a severe ponytail. She wore work boots, canvas pants, and a flannel shirt that had seen better days. But her eyes, those eyes were exactly the same. Olivia Chen, his wife, the woman he'd abandoned 2 decades ago when he'd chosen his dreams over their marriage. Except the application said Rivera, her maiden name. She stopped 3 feet from his desk, and he watched recognition hit her like a physical blow. Her face went pale, then flushed. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. For 10 seconds, neither of them spoke. "Marcus," she finally said, and her voice was different too, harder, weathered by years he knew nothing about. "Live." His throat felt like sandpaper. "You're a mason." Something flickered across her face. Anger, maybe, or bitter amusement. "You're a billionaire. Seems we both learned new trades." The professional mask she'd worn walking in had shattered. Now he could see everything underneath. Rage, pain, and something else he couldn't quite name. "I didn't know you were," he started, but she cut him off. "Don't. Whatever you're about to say, don't." She turned toward the door. "I'll withdraw my application." "Wait." The word came out sharper than he intended. She stopped but didn't turn around. "I need a lead mason. You're qualified." Now she did turn, and the look she gave him could have stripped paint. "You've got to be kidding me. The project is 3 weeks behind. I have investors threatening to pull funding. I have families waiting for affordable housing who can't wait another 6 months." He forced himself to meet her eyes. "I'm asking you to do a job, that's all." "That's all," she repeated, and laughed without humor. "You think you can just, what, hire me? Like the last 20 years didn't happen?" I think I can hire the most qualified candidate. He slid her application across the desk. And that's you. Olivia stared at him for a long moment. He watched her jaw work, watched her struggle with something internal. Finally, she stepped forward and picked up the application. Double the standard rate, she said flatly. And I report to the project manager, not to you. I don't want to see your face on this site unless absolutely necessary. Done. She nodded once, sharp and quick. Then she walked out without another word. Marcus sat alone in the trailer for 15 minutes after she left, staring at nothing. His hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against the desk until they stopped. What had he just done? 3 days later, Marcus broke his own rule. He showed up at the Brooklyn Heights site at dawn, telling himself he needed to check on progress. The truth was messier than that. He found Olivia on the 5th floor, working on an exposed brick wall that would be a design feature in one of the luxury units. She moved with absolute confidence, trowel in hand, laying brick with a precision that was almost artistic. 3 other masons worked nearby, but it was clear she was leading them, calling out measurements and adjustments. She didn't notice him at first. He watched her work, watched the economical grace of her movements, and felt something twist in his chest. This was not the woman he'd left behind. That Olivia had been a kindergarten teacher, soft-spoken and gentle, who'd spent her days with children and her evenings painting watercolors that never quite turned out right. This Olivia was forged steel. You've got questions, she said without looking at him. I can feel you staring. Marcus stepped closer, careful to stay out of her work area. How long have you been doing this? Masonry, 17 years. She set a brick, checked it with a level, tapped it into perfect alignment. Started as a laborer, worked my way up. You were a teacher. Was is the operative word. Now she did look at him, and her expression was unreadable. People change, Marcus. Circumstances change them. What circumstances? Olivia set down her trowel with deliberate care. You want to do this here? Now? In front of my crew? He glanced at the other masons, who were very obviously trying not to listen while hanging on every word. Take a break, he told Olivia. Please, 15 minutes. For a moment, he thought she'd refuse. Then she stripped off her work gloves and gestured toward the construction elevator. They rode down in silence, stepped out into the cold morning air. So ask, Olivia said, crossing her arms, whatever it is you think you need to know. Everything, Marcus said honestly. I need to know everything. What happened after I left? How you ended up here? She laughed, and it was a sharp, brittle sound. You want the whole story? The tragedy of Olivia Chen, who got left behind when her husband decided his company was more important than his wife? The words hit like punches, but he absorbed them. He deserved worse. I want to understand. Fine, here's the condensed version. Olivia's voice was flat, emotionless, like she was reciting facts about a stranger. You left, filed for divorce by mail. I was 23, no family, couldn't afford our apartment on a teacher's salary. Got evicted, lived in my car for 2 months. Marcus felt sick. Liv, I sent money. I set up an account. I never touched it. Her eyes flashed. I wasn't going to take your guilt money. I wasn't going to owe you anything. So what did you do? Survived. She turned to look at the partially constructed building behind them. Found work as a laborer on a construction site. Turns out I'm good with my hands. Strong. Not afraid of hard work. The foreman noticed, started teaching me the trade. I got my mason's license at 26. Been working ever since. You could have done anything else, Marcus said quietly. Gone back to teaching. Olivia's smile was sad. You don't understand, do you? I needed to do something hard, something that used my body until I was too exhausted to think. Teaching was who I was when I had a life. This, she gestured at her work clothes, her calloused hands. This is who I became after. The silence between them felt enormous. I looked for you, Marcus said, 2 years after the divorce. I tried to find you, to apologize, to make things right. I didn't want to be found. Olivia checked her watch. Break's over. I have work to do. Liv, don't call me that. On this site, I'm Rivera, your lead mason. Nothing more. She walked back toward the construction elevator and Marcus didn't follow. He stood in the morning cold, watching her disappear into the building he was creating, and wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life for the second time. Over the next week, Marcus found excuses to visit the Brooklyn Heights site daily. He told himself it was about the project. The truth was harder to face. Olivia was brilliant at her job. She'd identified structural issues the previous lead mason had missed, redesigned the brick facing on the affordable units to cut costs without sacrificing quality, and had her crew working with military precision. The project was back on schedule, but she maintained absolute professional distance from Marcus. When he approached, she discussed only work. When he tried to broach anything personal, she shut him down immediately. It was like talking to a stranger who happened to wear the face of someone he'd once loved. On Thursday afternoon, Marcus was reviewing plans in the trailer when shouting erupted outside. He rushed out to find a crowd gathering on the ground level. In the center, one of the laborers was on the ground, his leg twisted at a wrong angle. Olivia knelt beside him, barking orders. "Call an ambulance. You, get the first aid kit. You, find something we can use as a splint." Her voice was steady, calm, completely in control. Marcus watched her work, watched her immobilize the injury with materials scavenged from the site, watched her keep the young man calm until the paramedics arrived. She rode with him to the hospital. Marcus followed in his car. He found her 3 hours later in the hospital waiting room, still in her work clothes, dust in her hair. She looked exhausted. "He'll be okay," she said without preamble. "Compound fracture, but clean. He'll be in a cast for months, but he'll recover." Marcus sat down beside her. "You were amazing out there." "It's part of the job, keeping your crew safe." She rubbed her face with both hands. "Jorge's 22. He's sending money home to Mexico to support his grandmother. He can't afford to lose this job." "He won't. He'll be on paid medical leave, full salary until he can work again." Olivia looked at him with something like surprise. "That's generous." "It's basic decency." Marcus hesitated. "When did you become fluent in Spanish?" "I had to. Most of the crews I've worked with, Spanish was the primary language. So I learned." She stood up, wincing slightly. "I should get back to the site. It's 7 p.m. The crew's gone home. Then I should go home." "Let me drive you," Marcus offered. "You've been here for hours. I can take the subway." "Olivia, please." Maybe it was the exhaustion or the stress of the accident, but she nodded. They walked to his car in silence, a sleek Tesla that probably cost more than she made in 2 years. She didn't comment on it. "Where to?" Marcus asked. She gave him an address in Queens, a neighborhood he knew had been gentrifying but was still rough around the edges. The drive took 40 minutes in evening traffic. Olivia stared out the window the entire time, her reflection ghostly in the glass. When they pulled up to a modest apartment building, she reached for the door handle, then stopped. "Why did you leave?" The question came out raw, unguarded. "The real reason, not the business excuse." Marcus gripped the steering wheel. This was the conversation he'd been avoiding for 20 years. "I was terrified." "Of what?" "Of being trapped. Of becoming my father." The words came hard. He worked in a factory for 30 years, died at 52 of a heart attack. Never did anything he wanted, never went anywhere, never became anything more than what he started as. I watched my mother at his funeral, and all I could think was that she'd wasted her life with him. "So you ran," Olivia said flatly. "I ran," Marcus agreed. "I thought if I didn't chase my dreams right then, immediately, I'd lose my chance forever. I thought I'd build the company and then come back for you. I thought I could have both. You thought wrong. I know that now. I knew it 2 years later when I tried to find you. But by then you were gone, and maybe that was what I deserved." Olivia was quiet for a long moment. "I would have gone with you, you know, if you'd asked. If you'd included me in your plans instead of just disappearing one day with a note on the kitchen table." The confession felt like a knife. "I didn't think you'd want to. You had your teaching job, your life in Brooklyn. You didn't think, period. You just decided for both of us." She opened the door. "Thanks for the ride." "Liv, Olivia, wait." She paused, one foot out of the car. "I'm sorry, I know it's 20 years too late, and I know it doesn't fix anything. But I'm sorry. For leaving. For not fighting for us. For choosing wrong." Olivia looked back at him, and her eyes were wet. You know what the worst part was? It wasn't that you left. It was that you left so easily. Like our marriage was just something you could step away from whenever it became inconvenient. Like I was just an obstacle to your real life. That's not, yes, it was. Own it, Marcus. You prioritized your ambition over everything else, and you won. You got your empire, your billions, your name on buildings across the country. She climbed out of the car. I hope it was worth it. She closed the door and walked toward her building without looking back. Marcus sat in his car for a long time after she disappeared inside. Then he drove back to his penthouse and poured himself a drink he didn't finish. Instead, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through old photos he'd kept buried in a cloud account he never opened. There she was, 20 years younger, laughing at something off camera. Olivia in a sundress on their honeymoon. Olivia covered in paint after helping him renovate their first apartment. Olivia asleep on his shoulder on a subway train. He'd built an empire, but he'd destroyed something infinitely more valuable to do it. The next 2 weeks were torture. Olivia remained coldly professional, all business, no personal conversation. The Brooklyn Heights project thrived under her leadership. Marcus attended every progress meeting, memorized every detail, and hated himself a little more each day. Then came the investor tour. Marcus had arranged for his major investors to visit the site, to see the project that would anchor his company's expansion into affordable housing. It was crucial. These men controlled billions in capital, and their continued support meant the difference between growth and stagnation. The tour went well. The investors were impressed by the construction quality, the innovative design that mixed luxury and affordability in a single building, the ahead-of-schedule progress. Then Richard Thornton, the group's leader, noticed Olivia directing her crew on the 8th floor. "Who's that?" he asked. "Olivia Rivera, our lead mason," Marcus said. Thornton laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. "A woman? As your lead mason? Come on, Chen. That's great PR. But what's the real story? Who's actually running the masonry work?" Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "Ms. Rivera is running the masonry work. She's the most qualified mason I've ever employed." Right. Thornton winked at him. "We'll pretend that's true for the cameras. But seriously, you don't have to play diversity games with us." Before Marcus could respond, Olivia's voice cut across the floor. "Mr. Thornton, is it?" She approached them, still holding her trowel. Her expression was pleasant, but her eyes were ice. "I couldn't help overhearing. You seem confused about my qualifications." Thornton had the grace to look uncomfortable. "No offense, sweetheart, but masonry is a tough trade for a woman," Olivia finished. "Interesting theory. Tell me, Mr. Thornton, how many brick walls have you laid in your lifetime?" I'm an investor, not a zero then. I've laid approximately 847,000 bricks in my career. I hold master's certifications in historic restoration, modern high-rise construction, and decorative stonework. I've worked on projects in 17 states, including the restoration of the Brooklyn Bridge Foundation and the facing work on the Hancock Tower in Boston. She smiled, and it was sharp as broken glass. "But please tell me more about how my gender affects my ability to level a brick." The other investors looked anywhere but at Thornton, whose face had gone red. Marcus stepped forward. "Gentlemen, I think we've seen enough for today. My assistant will email you the detailed progress reports." After they left, Marcus found Olivia on the roof, looking out over Brooklyn. The sun was setting, painting the city in gold and amber light. "You didn't have to do that," Marcus said. "Yes, I did." Olivia didn't look at him. "I've been dealing with men like Thornton my entire career. You think you're the only one who has to prove yourself? I do it every single day." "I never thought about it that way." "Of course you didn't. You're a man. You can walk onto any construction site in the world and be assumed competent until proven otherwise. I walk on and I'm assumed incompetent until proven otherwise. Every single time." Marcus moved to stand beside her. "I told Thornton I might pull his investment stake if he can't respect my employees." That made her look at him. "You'd really do that? Risk millions over one comment?" It wasn't just one comment, and yes, some things are more important than money. Olivia studied his face for a long moment. "Who are you?" Because the Marcus I knew, the one who left 20 years ago, He'd have laughed along with Thornton and told me to let it go. People change, Marcus said quietly. You said so yourself. What changed you? He took a breath. This was the truth he'd been avoiding, even to himself. Losing you. I spent 20 years building an empire and wondering why I felt empty. Then you walked through that door 3 weeks ago, and I understood. I'd traded everything that mattered for things that didn't. That's a nice speech. Olivia's voice was bitter. But it doesn't change the past. I know. Nothing changes the past. But maybe, he hesitated, maybe we could change the present. What does that mean? I don't know. I just know that working with you these past weeks, seeing who you've become, it's made me realize how much I threw away. You're extraordinary, Olivia. Not just as a mason, but as a person. You're stronger and smarter and more capable than I ever imagined you could be. And I'm sorry I wasn't there to see it happen. Olivia turned away from him. You can't just apologize and expect everything to be okay. I know that too. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling you the truth. The truth is complicated, Marcus. The truth is, I spent years hating you, then years trying to forget you. And now you're here, and I don't know what I feel anymore. Before Marcus could respond, his phone rang. Daniel, his project manager. He almost ignored it, but the call was marked urgent. What? Boss, we've got a major problem. The zoning commission is rejecting our permit modification for the affordable units. They're saying we didn't follow proper procedure. If we don't resolve this by Monday, the whole project shuts down. Marcus closed his eyes. I'll handle it. He ended the call and looked at Olivia. I have to go. There's a crisis with the permits. Go. She waved him off. That's what you do, right? Put out fires, build empires, save the day. There was something in her tone that stopped him. You think I'm going to abandon this conversation and never come back, like I did before? Aren't you? No. The certainty in his voice surprised even him. I'll fix the permit issue, and then I'm coming back here, and we're finishing this conversation. Because you're right, the truth is complicated, but running from complicated things is what got us here. I'm done running. Olivia looked startled. Then something in her expression softened, just slightly. Okay, go fix your crisis. I'll be here when you get back. Promise? Promise. The permit crisis consumed the next 48 hours. Marcus barely slept, working with lawyers and city officials to untangle a bureaucratic nightmare. By Sunday evening, he'd secured emergency approval and saved the project, but he was exhausted. He went back to the site at dawn Monday, before the crew arrived, found Olivia already there, standing in front of a brick wall she'd been working on. But she wasn't working, she was just staring at it. It's beautiful, Marcus said. The wall was a masterpiece. She'd created a pattern using different colored bricks, subtle but intricate, that formed an abstract design. You'd only notice it if you really looked. I used to paint, Olivia said, watercolors that never quite worked. Turns out I was using the wrong medium. Bricks are my canvas now. Marcus stepped closer. I never understood your paintings. I thought they were just a hobby. They were how I saw the world, how I expressed the things I couldn't say out loud. She touched the wall gently. You never asked about them, never really looked. The accusation landed. You're right, I was so focused on my own dreams, I never bothered to learn yours. I wanted to be an art teacher, Olivia said softly. Not just kindergarten, but middle or high school. I wanted to show kids that art was a language, a way to communicate when words weren't enough. That was my dream. But I never told you because you were so consumed with your construction company, I didn't think you'd care. Marcus felt something break inside his chest. I would have cared. Would you? Really? She finally turned to look at him. Or would you have nodded and said it was nice, and then gone back to talking about your next project? He couldn't answer, because they both knew the truth. You want to know what the real tragedy is? Olivia continued. I gave up my dream because I thought supporting yours was what love meant. I made myself smaller so you could be bigger, and then you left anyway. Live. And the worst part? I'm grateful you left, because if you hadn't, I'd still be making myself smaller. I'd still be the woman who painted watercolors that didn't work instead of brick walls that do. You leaving destroyed me, Marcus, but it also freed me to become who I actually am. Marcus absorbed this, let it sink in. So where does that leave us? I honestly don't know. Olivia sat down on a stack of lumber. Part of me wants to hate you forever. Part of me wants to forgive you. And part of me, a part I really don't want to acknowledge, still loves you, or loves the memory of you, or loves the person you might have been if you'd chosen differently. Marcus sat down beside her, careful to leave space between them. I know I can't undo the past, and I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything, but I want you to know that if I could go back, if I could choose again, I'd choose us. I'd choose you, every single time. But you can't go back. None of us can. No, but maybe we can go forward. Olivia laughed sadly. As what? Employer and employee? Ex-husband and ex-wife? Strangers who share a history? As friends, Marcus said. To start, just friends who are getting to know each other again. The people we actually are now, not who we were 20 years ago. She considered this. Friends? Friends. No expectations, no pressure. Just two people who used to know each other, learning who they've become. That's probably the smartest thing you've said since I walked back into your life. Olivia held out her hand. Okay, friends. Marcus shook her hand, and the touch of her calloused palm against his sent electricity up his arm. Friends. Over the next month, they built something new. Marcus stopped making excuses to visit the site and started being honest about why he was there. Olivia stopped retreating behind professional distance and started sharing stories about her life. They had coffee together in the morning before the crew arrived. They reviewed plans together in the afternoon. They talked. Marcus learned that Olivia had traveled extensively, working on projects across the country. She'd never remarried, though she'd had relationships. None of them lasted because, as she put it, turns out I'm married to my work. Sound familiar? Olivia learned that Marcus had been in therapy for 10 years, trying to understand why success felt empty. That he donated millions to affordable housing initiatives, trying to fill the void where his conscience used to be. That he still dreamed about her sometimes and woke up feeling guilty. They were careful with each other, testing boundaries, learning what was safe to discuss. But slowly, carefully, trust grew. Then came the night everything changed. It was a Tuesday in late November. The Brooklyn Heights project was nearing completion, just 2 weeks from the deadline. Olivia was working late, putting finishing touches on a decorative wall in the main lobby. Marcus had stayed to review final inspection schedules. Come look at this, Olivia called from the lobby. Marcus joined her. She'd created another brick masterpiece, this one more elaborate. Abstract shapes that somehow suggested movement, change, growth. It's incredible, he said honestly. It tells a story. That's the goal. She stepped back to admire her work. I call it transformation. It's about how breaking apart is sometimes how we become whole. Marcus looked at her instead of the wall. Is that what happened to us? We broke apart so we could become whole. Olivia met his eyes. I think maybe it is. I needed to break to become strong. You needed to succeed to learn what really matters. And now? Now we're standing in a building you created and I helped build. Now we're having a conversation we couldn't have had 20 years ago because we weren't ready for it. Now, she hesitated, now I'm not sure what comes next. Marcus took a careful step closer. What do you want to come next? I want to stop being afraid, Olivia said quietly. I want to stop protecting myself from the possibility of being hurt again. I want to believe that people can change, that time can heal things, that maybe second chances aren't just fantasies. I've changed, Marcus said. I'm not the man who left you. I'm not the man who chose ambition over love. I'm someone who learned the hard way that all the success in the world means nothing if you have nobody to share it with. Pretty words, true words. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. He took her hand. I'm not asking you to forget the past. I'm not asking you to pretend I didn't hurt you. I'm just asking if maybe, possibly, there's a chance for something new. Not the marriage we had, but something different. Something built on who we are now, not who we were then. Olivia's hand trembled in his. I'm terrified. Me too. If we try this and it fails, I don't think I'll survive it again. Then we won't let it fail. We'll communicate. We'll be honest. We'll choose each other every single day, not just once at the beginning. She looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. I still love you. I never stopped. I buried it, denied it, ran from it. But it was always there. And that makes me so angry, Marcus. Because I should hate you. I should have moved on. I love you too, Marcus said. I never stopped either. I just didn't let myself feel it, because feeling it meant acknowledging what I'd lost. This is insane. We're insane. Probably, he smiled. But maybe that's okay. Maybe sometimes the insane choice is the right one. Olivia pulled her hand free, and for a heartbeat, Marcus thought she was going to walk away. Instead, she stepped closer and kissed him. It was tentative at first, testing, remembering. Then it deepened, 20 years of longing and regret and hope pouring into a single moment. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Okay, Olivia whispered. Okay, we'll try this, but slowly. I need time to trust this, to trust you, to trust myself. However long you need, Marcus promised. I'm not going anywhere. Not ever again. The Brooklyn Heights project finished on schedule. The grand opening was a massive success, with politicians and community leaders praising the mixed-income model. Marcus gave the opening speech, but he made sure to credit his entire team, especially his lead mason. Olivia stood in the back, wearing actual dress clothes instead of work gear for the first time since he'd met her again. She looked beautiful and uncomfortable in equal measure. After the speeches, Marcus found her outside, looking up at the building. We made something good, Olivia said. Something that will matter to people. We did, Marcus agreed. Together. She laced her fingers through his. I've been thinking about what comes next. For us, I mean. And I want to keep working. I love what I do. I'm not giving up my career. I wouldn't ask you to. And I want to teach, Olivia continued. Part-time, maybe at a trade school. Showing young women that they can do this work, that they don't have to choose between being feminine and being strong. That's perfect. You'd be amazing at that. And I want us to take it slow, really slow. Dating, getting to know each other, building something solid before we rush into anything. Marcus turned to face her fully. Olivia Rivera, would you let me take you on a date? A real date, where I pick you up and we go somewhere nice and I try to impress you? She laughed, and it was the first completely free, happy laugh he'd heard from her since she'd walked back into his life. Marcus Chen, I would like that very much. 3 months later, they were having breakfast in Marcus's penthouse. Olivia had stayed over, tentatively testing what it felt like to be in his space. She wore one of his shirts and looked more at home than he'd dared to hope. I want to show you something, Marcus said. He led her to a room he'd converted into a studio. Easels, canvases, paints, brushes. Everything an artist could need. Olivia stood in the doorway, speechless. You said you wanted to paint again? Marcus explained. Not instead of masonry, but in addition to it. So I thought, maybe, if you want to, you could keep some supplies here for when you're visiting or staying over, or eventually, if you want to, living here. You did this for me? I should have done it 20 years ago. I should have built you a studio in our apartment. I should have asked about your art, your dreams, your hopes. I should have made space for you in my life instead of expecting you to fit into the spaces I left over. Olivia walked into the studio, running her hands over the canvases. Her eyes were wet. This is the most thoughtful thing anyone's ever done for me. You deserve thoughtful. You deserve someone who sees your dreams and wants to help make them real. She turned to him, and the smile on her face was radiant. You really have changed, haven't you? I'm trying to, every day. For you, but also for myself. Because the man I was, the one who left you, I don't want to be him anymore. Olivia pulled him into a kiss. I love you. I'm still scared, and I'm still figuring out how to trust this. But I love you. I love you too, and we'll figure it out together. 6 months after that, Marcus proposed. Not with a grand gesture or a surprise, but with a conversation. They were at the Brooklyn Heights building, sitting on a bench in the courtyard they'd created together. I want to marry you again, Marcus said, But I want it to be different this time. I want us to write our own vows. I want to promise you things I didn't understand the first time. I want to commit to choosing you every single day, not just once." Olivia was quiet for a long time. "I need to tell you something first. Something I've been afraid to say." "Okay. When you left 20 years ago, I was pregnant." Marcus felt the world tilt. "What?" "I didn't know yet when you left. I found out 2 weeks later. I tried to call you, but you changed your number. I tried to reach out through your company, but you were unreachable." Her voice was steady, but tears ran down her face. "I lost the baby at 12 weeks. Miscarriage. And I had nobody. No husband, no family, no support. I went through it completely alone." Marcus felt like he'd been punched. "Liv, Olivia, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I needed you to know. Before we move forward, I needed you to understand what your leaving cost. Not just our marriage, but the family we might have had. I don't know what to say. I can't." He struggled for words. "I can't make that right. There's no apology big enough." "I know. That's why I'm telling you. Not to punish you, but so you understand. If we do this again, if we get married again, I need to know you understand what commitment really means. What it costs when you break it." Marcus pulled her close, held her while she cried for the loss neither of them had properly mourned. "I understand. I swear to you, I understand. And I will never, never leave you again. No matter what. No matter how hard things get or how scared I am or how tempting it might be to run. You come first, always." Olivia clung to him. "I believe you. I don't know why, after everything, but I believe you. So is that a yes? Will you marry me? Again?" She pulled back, wiped her eyes, and smiled through the tears. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you again. But we're doing it right this time." They married 6 months later, in a small ceremony at the Brooklyn Heights building they'd created together. Olivia wore a simple white dress and work boots because, as she said, "I want to marry you as exactly who I am now, not who I was before." Marcus's vows included promises he'd never thought to make the first time: to honor her work, to support her dreams, to ask questions and really listen to the answers, to choose her every single day, to never make her feel small so he could feel big. Olivia's vows included forgiveness, trust, and hope. She promised to believe in second chances, to let herself be vulnerable again, to build something new on the foundation of lessons learned the hard way. 3 years later, they were working together on their fifth joint project, a community center in the South Bronx. Marcus still ran Chen Development, but now Olivia was his partner in more ways than one. She'd started a nonprofit that trained women in construction trades, and half their projects now included job training components. "You know what I realized?" Olivia said one evening, as they reviewed plans at their dining room table. "What?" "We're better now than we ever would have been if you hadn't left." Marcus looked up, surprised. "You really think so?" "I do. If we'd stayed together back then, I'd still be that woman who made herself smaller. You'd still be that man who put ambition first. We'd have been okay, maybe, but we wouldn't have been this." She gestured at their plans, their life, their partnership. "We had to break to become strong enough to build something real." Marcus came around the table and pulled her into his arms. "I still wish I could take back the pain I caused you." "I know, but pain teaches lessons happiness never does. And I wouldn't trade who I've become, even if it meant avoiding the hurt. You're the strongest person I've ever met." "We're strong," Olivia corrected. "Together. That's the whole point." They stood there in their kitchen holding each other, and Marcus thought about the journey that had brought them here. The mistakes he'd made, the years they'd lost, the pain they'd both endured, the slow, difficult process of rebuilding trust. And he thought about what they'd created from those ashes: a real partnership, a marriage built on honesty and respect and daily choice, a life that honored both their dreams instead of sacrificing one for the other. "I'm glad you walked through that door," Marcus said quietly, "that day at the site. I'm glad you needed a job and I needed a mason and fate decided to give us another chance." "I'm glad too," Olivia said, "even though I hated you for about the first 2 months." Marcus laughed. "Only 2 months? Okay, 3. But who's counting?" She kissed him. What matters is where we are now, and now is pretty damn good. 5 years after their reunion, Olivia Rivera Chen stood at a podium, accepting an award for her nonprofit's work in construction education. Marcus sat in the front row watching her speak to a crowd of industry leaders and felt overwhelming pride. This was the woman he'd almost lost forever, the woman who'd turned pain into power, betrayal into brick walls, abandonment into artistry. The woman who'd taught him that real strength wasn't about building empires. It was about building a life worth living with someone who made you better than you'd ever be alone. When Olivia finished her speech and left the podium, she didn't go back to her seat. She came to him, took his hand, and together they walked out of the banquet hall into the New York night. "Let's go home," Olivia said. "Best idea I've heard all day." They walked together through the city they'd both helped build, hand in hand. Two people who'd taken the long way to forever but had finally arrived.